Glasses on or off?
On.
All right, welcome to the Boargening, Chapter 2, live stream number 2. All right, I have Cooper Sterling with me, and my brother Paul, and I'm Lennon. So, Cooper.
I identify as primitive. I am neither here nor there.
How about, okay, instead of using big terms like that, how about you just tell us what you believe?
I believe, this is a political podcast.
Just talk to me.
I believe that, I believe in some conservative values, but I don't believe that all the conservative values are entirely correct.
All right, give me some examples of that.
So, I watched your last episode because I'm a big fan. And when Elijah Murphy said, I believe that older people are more wiser because they've been on this planet longer, I did not fully agree with that statement because just that day I had to set up my grandma's Netflix account. And I thought someone like this does not deserve.
All right, is that
okay?
That's a difference.
All right.
That's a difference between
I'm
inexperience with technology and wisdom. I got that. Okay.
I know.
All right. So
but the thing is that they're not as well adapted to the modern climate of politics.
They're not woke.
Paul. They're not woke like me.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, because
but I mean, there's not. The old adage is true. There's nothing new under the face of the sun. As long as we're around, there's always going to be people who essentially believe the same things. They believe in their own pride. And older people, they've been around long enough to understand how to, put aside oneself, how to deal with, certain intangible things, like fatherhood and just love and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do agree with that because you can see
I think that's the root of conservative value of that sort of value. It's not necessarily that they're good at,
yeah.
gaming.
I know. Gaming.
They're just
Yeah, I know.
They're wise. They're wise in other ways.
Actually,
I believe they're wise in other ways, but some of the core values of what they stood for and what they've tried to fight for.
Give me some examples of that.
Racism.
So, all right. So it is a big thing. So back then, racism was.
And I'm not blaming them for it because I do believe that was something of the time, and I do believe when my grandfather calls gay people the F word, he does not mean anything by it, but
I think it is just something that went with the time. But when we talk about those old people, they're the same people who fought for potential rights in the 50s and 60s and stuff, and the women's movement throughout the 1900s.
Yeah.
It's difficult because we have our own downfalls right now as it is,
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we're divided. We're so divided just between left and right as it is, and I would say that can be dangerous as well. Just it's not racism, but it's a certain type of prejudice.
Yeah, I do believe that there is some wisdom that comes with being older, but I also do believe that people, younger people, I would say, they believe that they know what's right, and sometimes they can be so wrong, but it doesn't matter because they have a platform to share their opinion on.
Yeah, that's kind of why I want to do this show. Is just, I mean, I'm a young person, and I think I like to think I'm right on some things, but I want to just have conversations in order to be able to.
I definitely understand.
Yeah.
I believe that censorship is wrong and that conversation is meaningful and it's necessary.
Well, yeah, I agree with that because the best way to fight bad ideas is by getting them out in the open. If you censor somebody and you just have them, hold that in their hearts, I mean, it'll spread, but nobody will know that it's spreading the way that it is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're able to get that out in the open, you're like, this is a stupid idea. And
Yeah, but there's some people that would disagree with us and call us
disagree with
racist
us in
or
what way?
disagree with us in the way that like you can have an opinion as long as it's not incorrect. Like Paul
Sure,
over here.
I do think there are people who you know they
Yeah.
put on that facade of like I hate all conservatives, and they do that on like Twitter and stuff. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some people that would act that way personally, but I don't know anybody myself that would just, you know, if I were like, hey, I heard you believe such and such, would you want to talk about that with me? They wouldn't just be like, oh, you disagree with me. Well, you're wrong. I'm never going to talk to you in my life.
Well, I would agree with that, but I've had this experience where I was in school, and this was like I wouldn't call myself intelligent,
All
but
right.
I'm kind of up there. I'm kind of smart.
So you had experiences like that before, where people just
They just
well, yeah,
and they got really
That's-
mad at me.
well, you're all you can also be a bit, you know, but
Much.
but that's all right. That's all right.
Yeah.
So you're sort of
I'm that guy.
in the center there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you, on the other hand, you just how would you describe yourself?
He sure is here.
So I don't like to get into politics because every single time I do, someone else has to disagree with me, and they
Do you have
have
an
a
example?
difference.
Do you have an example of that?
So I used to I've only been fed facts from conservatives side.
Yeah.
And like I don't know much about politics per se, but so I used to think that like all this stuff was true, and then I would go to and talk about this stuff to like.
Do you have
people.
a specific example? Because I just want to get an understanding. Like,
Yeah.
are you putting yourself out there, or have you already assumed that people don't want to talk to you?
Well, it's more of an assumption because I see all this stuff on like online and stuff where people are getting assaulted or like
Yeah.
it's violent. It gets violent.
Yeah, I think there's sort of a glorification of that tribalism in the news, but
Yeah.
I don't think you should necessarily be afraid to, you know,
Well,
voice your opinions. Just
Yeah,
with,
but
like,
I
friends.
don't know if I even have an opinion because both sides
He
are so
hasn't.
flawed.
Yeah.
Sure,
I've
but
felt like
that-
that before.
But that doesn't mean you can't, like, you know, like take an idea here from one side and take an idea here from the other.
Right.
That's your new philosophy.
That's my
So
yeah.
So, so if you see something in the news, it could be anything. You don't have any like strong feelings about it necessarily.
No. So like what happened a couple days ago with the Capitol, I felt like there was no right being done there at all. Like I felt
At
like
all?
they didn't have any right to do that. And
Why is that?
Seemed kind of childish. To be
because they put other people's lives in danger because they just didn't feel like they were getting their way.
Well, they would argue that the people who they were the Capitol that they were storming was putting the entire system into jeopardy by, you know, with the Electoral College, by allowing it to be rigged, or however they would put it.
Yeah. I don't
See, I think that's something you need to look out for, because I know the first instinct is like, oh, they're storming the Capitol. America is good. We don't want it to just, you know, crumble. This is probably a pretty bad thing. And I'm not saying I necessarily condone what happened in the Capitol.
Right.
But you need to understand the motives of both sides, both the Senate, who was confirming the election, and the people outside who were storming the Capitol. When we look at like the news and stuff, they immediately just demonize the people who were involved at the rally, instead of, you know, there are some potential actual grievances that they had. Now, should they have taken such violent action? Probably not. But at this point, their voices weren't necessarily being heard to the fullest extent.
Right. Well, I didn't see any I didn't see anything in like the news where it was like protests are being held, like peaceful protests and not violent ones. They just kind of went straight to being violent.
That's the problem, is they don't show the full picture, because it was originally just a Trump rally.
Yeah.
And they were just peacefully marching. I'm not and then it ended up erupting into this storming of the Capitol building.
Right.
The
Well, didn't the same thing happen when Trump was elected? Like liberals,
No. What? So if we're looking back a couple,
and it did nothing.
if we're looking back a couple months, it's not necessarily comparable with the Black Lives Matter riots.
Oh yeah, no,
because that was
a mass.
was mass property destruction in comparison to just storming a Capitol building.
No, I was
on black businesses, by the way, which was not helping anything.
Yeah, attacking black businesses for the most part. And then the media was quick to call a lot of that peaceful protesting, even though they were destroying the livelihoods of tons of people.
Yeah. The thing with the Trump rally,
And I think that's why it's important to. It's difficult because you have Fox News, which is so conservative. You don't get the left, and then you have CNN, which is so left that you don't get the right.
I don't believe that the news is left. It's the commercialization of the news, that they're being sponsored by all these people that are feeding them the information.
And they rely on ratings, so they need to have bigger and better and more exciting.
Yeah.
And then when you flip on the news and all you see is, oh, these people are blowing up the Capitol, you're not getting the full picture.
But
there. So
the same thing could be said about the Black Lives Matter protests.
Well, yeah.
And there was a lot of racial injustice there. And so
potentially, but that was the big problem a lot of people had with the Black Lives Matter, is that the incidents in question, like the George Floyd incident, the Jacob Blake incident, the Breonna Taylor incident, all of those, they weren't necessarily black and white. Now, I agree. I do not condone the murder of anybody.
Yeah.
But when, let's take the Jacob Blake incident, for example. When did you watch the video?
No, I did not.
You didn't. You need to. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit late now, but if you watch the video, the guy is reaching into his car when he gets shot. And if you go and you look at some of the court documents and some of the police papers, he was reaching for a knife. There were kids in the car, and the woman who called the police on him was reporting him for rape. So, and to top it all off, he had a record of assault on police officers. Now, I'm not saying that it's necessarily right that he got shot or anything. I'm not saying he did get shot because he assaulted a police officer before. But when you have those circumstances and you decide, I'm going to reach into a car with children in it and grab for a knife, that's not smart around the cops.
That's not smart.
And then when the media turns that into black man shot, this is grave injustice, we need to, kill all cops are bastards, stuff like that. It doesn't show the full picture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And the ACAB thing, I was confused by that when I first heard about it. Like, how can you
All
just
cops are
assume that
bad.
all cops are bad or
They are.
bastardized?
I can say that because my dad's a cop.
And then someone told me that it doesn't mean they're all bad, but they all work for a corrupt system, which means they,
I do believe
in a way, are.
I can agree with that to an extent, The problem is when they take this, the system is corrupt, and there is many flaws in the system, but we can't just throw away the system, like defund the police out of the thin
Yeah,
air.
that's not going to do anything.
That'll only serve to
You know what that is?
create crime.
That is the same logic that America used when they decided to kill the leader of North Korea, and now we have Kim Jong-un. Like, they thought immediately, like, defunding the police would help, which did not make sense at all. And the same thing happened.
Well, I think
definitely
I agree that the police may
have too
need
much
to be
power.
defunded. They have a lot of power,
too much.
and I think they need to certainly be reformed.
Yeah, reform. Yeah,
But
reformation.
you don't just throw away the whole thing and expect it to be all dandy.
Yeah.
You need to replace it with something. Now that may be a private body, or militia or something of that sort.
I think that and the thing is, like, private body, that I don't believe in, like, the private body. I believe that they should, like, rework the system, just because if we have a private body, then it could also be on a larger scale,
Well,
the news commercialized.
When I talk about, but when you see private police organizations, right now you've already got this commercialization of the police system. You've already got one body ruled over by everyone. If you have multiple companies vying for competition, they're going to want to perform the best in order to appease the people, and only the best is going to get the funds in order to stay around. And it's the problem arises when with monopolies, is what you're talking about, is when when you have the government come in and say, we need to regulate certain companies, so not just any company can start but
doing everything and creating
they're trying to, when they come in and say, you need to have this license, this paper, this badge, all such and such, before you can even start policing. It only stifles competition, and eventually you have the biggest company come in, and they're just they can manipulate the system in order to stifle competition. You know what I'm saying? You have that type of stuff, with like Walt Disney and you see this in all kinds of other places in the private world.
I don't want to. At this point, I don't want to outstep the boundaries of what I know, so I'm going to leave this topic. So can we move on to another topic?
All right.
I was thinking of one.
Sure.
It's going to be completely different. I don't want to talk like the BLM or any of that right now, because we already went over that.
Just go ahead.
It's very sensitive right now.
Do you think that marijuana should be legal?
All right. So, what do you think?
Either medicinal or communal. I believe that we should start with medicinal, but I believe at some point or another, communal marijuana should be legal in all 50 states. That's what we're going to go over, Paul.
Well, so you define yourself as anarcho-primitivism, or somewhere along the anarcho spectrum there. So, how do you come to that conclusion?
Because
I
believe that.
Hey, if you legalize weed, what's the fun in doing it?
The thing is that it's just the fact that we've legalized alcohol, and weed has health benefits for people that like suffer from comas, and they have to move like far away to get like marijuana treatment, and they have to move away from their friends and family and just pick up everything and go, just because of this silly law that was passed a long time ago.
So your line of thinking is, we're already legalizing such and such. Why not legalize
And also,
further.
yeah, and also that just seems like, to me, it seems like more of like, I don't know if I'm outstepping, like, if I'm correct here, but like more of like a healthier alternative to like alcohol, like as a drug, because like alcohol has all these like damaging things to your liver, but like I know that like smoking weed would like cause your lungs to get
Sure. Same as like
Like,
cigarettes. Yeah.
tar and stuff, but like if we can like, also it'd be safer for the people that are addicted to weed
All right.
because they're having
So,
a more steady
all right.
in.
So how far do we go with that? How far do we go with legalizing?
I believe that like first we should make the steps of making it medicinal. That way,
Alright,
that little
sure.
little Susie doesn't have to move to Colorado because
Not how we get there. What is the end here? Do we legalize all drugs?
I feel like legalizing all drugs is a big step because
Sure, but
if we legalize all drugs,
down
Then
the line.
actually making a good point, you did make a good point, then what's the fun in doing it? I feel like people would develop like even stronger drugs, like if we did legalize all drugs, because there would be no point in doing it because you don't feel like you're getting away with something or something. You know what I mean?
Well, I think to the opposite.
cold.
I think I would see it as the opposite. Is if you have people, it's a big issue right now. People get hooked on opioids,
Yeah,
and they have nowhere to turn, and they don't have any safe alternative.
yeah,
But if you give them that the ability to seek out help without facing repercussions,
uh-huh.
then they're going to be safer in the long run.
Well, I don't think like, this is what I believe. If you are found like with heroin in your system, you shouldn't be sent to prison because that's just like a dark, desolate place that is just going to make your condition worse, and you're just going to get out of there and pump your body full of that sweet, sweet tar. But as soon as like if you like send them to like rehab and like put them in a place where they feel loved and they don't feel like,
Don't they already send them to rehab?
no, like they have to
All
be
right.
willing. They have to check themselves in the rehab. You can't send someone there.
Well, no, you can have court mandated rehab. But you're sort of getting off onto a different topic.
I know.
Here's my position on the whole drug issue is, you know John Locke? You don't? Okay. So
I've
you
heard.
know Thomas Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
He wrote Declaration of Independence and all. We hold these truths to be
self-evident that all men are created equal, except for the black ones.
and that we have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. John Locke, he got that idea from John Locke, and John Locke originally wrote, we have life, liberty, and property. But the biggest of those is property. So when you're born into this world, all your property is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And with your property, you have the right to property. That means you have the right to do with your property as you please.
Mm-hmm.
And all rights in the end are property rights.
Yeah.
So if you have,
Did I say that weird?
Yeah.
I had some stuck in my throat.
So,
yeah.
So if you have complete ownership of your own body,
Mm-hmm.
you should have the ability to put into it whatever you want.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to face potential responsibility and repercussions from society as a whole. I think reinforcing this idea that we have our own personal responsibility, that we can make our own decisions, will only serve to increase public awareness and responsibility as a whole.
It's just like, I wouldn't think. Are you saying like we should just legalize it, but like not put out like dispensaries? Because that's what I'm imagining. Like if we legalize like meth, there'll be like meth dispensaries to where you can buy your medical meth or whatever.
If there's a desire for it, the market will adjust. If people want meth, there will be a company who makes meth, and gives that out to people. Now, with that also comes though that social responsibility. It's unlikely that you're just going to have them give out meth and then not have to face any repercussions for their actions. And certainly, if there is a need for recovering meth addicts to have a rehab or something, the market will adapt to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll just have even better rehab, and you'll have even better forms of the drug itself, so that it can be the safest, and you can take it in the safest environment.
Adderall.
Yeah,
pretty much, which is also an amphetamine, and which I take every day for my ADHD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, developing a safer version of the already existing. I feel like that's actually a smarter decision, because then you wouldn't have people diluting it with ketamine to get people hooked on it faster.
Mm-hmm. Because it's a combination of personal rights, the market, the laissez-faire capitalism, and just social responsibility.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean you should do drugs.
Yeah.
Because they're still bad for you. They're still
your body is
addictive.
Yeah.
But with that choice to partake in drugs being presented to you, it's all the better testimony to others when you're able to withstand that pressure to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that only boosts your testimony if they're like, man, why aren't you smoking dope? And you're like, because I know I'm made for a greater purpose. I'm not meant to just blow my life
mm-hmm.
on drugs and money and sex and all that stuff. Just like we have already with alcohol and cigarettes. We abstain from such things, and we become a living sacrifice, because we're not necessarily living it up in this life, but we know we'll live it up in the next life. You know what I'm saying?
So what he's trying to say, all the meth in heaven.
I don't know.
Yeah, what?
That's that. I don't want to touch that topic.
Anyway, guys, what do you think the afterlife is?
So, we can transition from this topic into because this is all my body, my choice type of deal, and so I feel like this could transition into the.
All right.
I was thinking, yeah.
We don't have to announce the transition. All right, you can just ask the question.
I was just making the point.
So what you're asking is, if we're applying this "my body, my choice" to drugs, why don't we apply that to abortion as well?
Abortion, yes.
I feel like here's my stance. Sorry if I cut you off because I heard you. Okay. I believe that if you are raped, then you should be allowed to have an abortion. If you are not offered the day after pill, because at some Catholic hospitals that are the closest to you, they do not offer the day after pill.
Okay.
You should be allowed to have an abortion after that. I don't believe that if the baby is almost completely developed, then you should be allowed to have an abortion. And I believe that if you are allowed to if the man is not involved in the choice making, and you are the only one that's allowed to make the choice, because it's your body, your choice, then the man should be allowed to make the choice of whether he's going to pay you the payments for that child or not. Because that's his wallet, his choice.
All right. So we'll back it up a little bit.
That's awesome.
So you're talking about abortion being allowed in only extreme cases?
Well, I feel like it should be allowed if it's a month, or to where the baby can't feel pain, or it's just a fetus and it's just a few cells.
All right. Okay, so
it's just barely there, just to where it can't feel pain, and to where it's
so would you admit? So would you say that is a living organism at that point, even if it can't just because even if it can't feel pain, is it still a living organism there?
I mean, I guess technically it would be considered one. Like, I just feel like if it's painful for a baby, I don't want to like punch a baby in the face.
So
I do.
Okay.
Okay, let's.
So the problem I have with that line of thinking is, as soon from the moment of conception, you have new DNA, which that DNA is not like anything of your own body. I don't know. I can't see how you can argue that is a part of your body, because it is completely separate DNA.
Yeah.
Your body isn't creating that DNA. The organism inside of you is. So that's first part. Second part. I lost my train of thought.
No, it's fine.
Okay, wait. Okay, so we were talking about
abortion.
Yeah, but you said having to do with pain.
Yeah, if the baby can feel pain, if it's like 8 months or like extreme cases.
So if that's a completely separate organism, I mean, how do we just determine at one point that it's living or not, that it's not murder, that this is murder and this isn't murder?
Well, let me ask you something. Like,
okay,
the thing is that if that baby is born and the mother is not ready for it,
there's adoption.
There is adoption, but sometimes like families have a big impact, and sometimes families don't believe in like that type of thing. Adoption, yeah, like that's a case. Like,
so they would believe in abortion but not adoption?
I know, it's
okay.
Strange.
Let me go back to the pain thing.
I'm talking about insane people here.
I'm not going to call people insane necessarily, but
yeah,
the pain. The problem I have with the pain thing is some people are born without pain receptors.
Yeah.
So, how do we just? So they're just not living because they couldn't feel the pain.
I mean,
so
like,
it'd be all right to just take them out.
If their heart isn't beating, I feel like that'd be another sign.
If your heart isn't, beating, they're dead.
I'm talking about the fetus.
If the baby's heart isn't beating, it's already dead.
Real? I thought there was a point when its heart starts to beat, and it's not just.
Oh, you mean? Oh, okay. So you're saying when the heartbeat comes.
Yeah.
So you changed it from pain to heartbeat now.
Yeah, I feel like that's actually a better. I'm developing.
Okay.
This podcast.
but that doesn't account for the idea that is still unique DNA.
Yeah.
Why does that individual have the right to that DNA, even though they're not the ones who are actually creating it? They're just sustaining it. I'm
not saying it's right, and I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong either. I'm just saying I don't believe that you should like shame someone for having an abortion. Like, people are immediately shamed.
I'm not talking about shaming people.
I know.
I wouldn't shame people because everybody is sinful.
Yeah.
You gotta.
Yeah.
You don't. But
it's like I don't go.
I do think that they need to be aware of their actions, though. And that is completely that DNA is completely separate from their body. They're only sustaining it. They aren't the ones producing it.
The thing is that in the society that we live in today, appearance is heavily. Can you get my jacket for me while you're there? In the society that we live today, appearance is a big deal, and I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there are a lot of physical consequences.
Should we allow societal norms to influence moral judgment?
I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying that people are going to do it either way. Like, because if they're
that's a fair point.
People care so much about appearance nowadays, and I'm against that. I look like you could see me on the side of the road holding up a sign that says, "I am an army veteran."
Go ahead and link this to abortion.
Yeah. People are so. Yeah. What?
you say you were homeless?
No, listen. People are so caught up on their appearance nowadays, and the first thing that's going to come to some of the first things that's going to come to their mind is, oh my God, I'm going to have stretch marks.
Mhm.
And there are physical things that you cannot get back after giving birth.
That would justify
I'm not saying you would justify it.
eliminating a life.
I'm not saying you would justify
okay.
it to me. I'm just saying that
so
people believe
you're
that.
just saying people are going to get it regardless.
Yes, people are going to get it regardless. So I think that people are going to think that regardless. So I don't think it would be our job to determine what they do with their lives.
That's difficult though, because
I know it's a
there are
difficult
two
opinion.
lives
Yeah,
that are
I
in the
know.
balance there, not just one.
I know, and I fully understand that. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna go up to someone because that just seems kind of like they're already on edge. They're going to have an abortion, and you have someone outside the abortion clinic saying like, "Oh my God, you're about to kill a baby."
I don't know that that's necessarily that occurs as much as you think it is. There are some good like ministries and stuff out there that it's women. They're not anywhere. They don't go to the abortion centers, but like New Hope Center or New Hope Center.
New Hope.
Yeah. Our church does stuff with them. And they, rather than, shaming people and being like, that's a human life, you just murdered somebody.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, they explain to them, how conception works. And they explain to them that Jesus and that God loves every individual, that God is forming that individual in the womb, that individual already has a soul.
Yeah.
And they provide alternatives, like they're very into adoption, and there's tons of foster mothers that are lined up. Now I'm not saying that necessarily would fix the problem, but I think demonizing those types of people as shaming people and
and I do think that people need to adopt more, or I think that people need to give their child for adoption more, because if you see like the way these people that are like trying to adopt children are going about it, it's really sad because they are not able to have children of their own, and I feel like to them abortion is just like a spit in the face.
Well, and I think that.
Sorry.
I think how a lot of people respond to that though is we already have a pretty overrun adoption and foster care service as it is. So it is a combination of, we need social responsibility, being willing to look out for children who are already born. But it's also, that personal responsibility for, you have created a life within you.
Mm-hmm.
God loves that child.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that is a human being.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think that even like setting aside all of religion and everything, I mean, a life is a life, and that's scary to think about, that you could like, because what if that was you that like just got aborted? I mean,
that is a fair point, because there's plenty of cases where the abortion will fail and the mother won't retry or anything, and the child will be born and they have to come into this world knowing that their mother didn't want them originally.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. And they regret that often, because they love that child. That child ends up being a huge blessing to them.
Mm-hmm.
and they were ready to get rid of them.
I think that's Jesus stepping in, like
that is definitely a miracle.
Higher power stepping in.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I've heard him say that before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
talks to me.
John 5:4.
John 5:4.
Hold on.
I wanted to move on to another topic. I know you don't want me to say. Time to move on to another topic.
Just start talking.
How do you feel about legalizing sex work?
I think the same sort of line of thinking applies to that as well. It's your body.
Mm-hmm.
You can do as you want. Now there will be social repercussions, but if you're willing to do
define
it,
sex work.
prostitution.
Prostitution,
Oh,
like red light district, like
oh,
places in like Amsterdam, Japan, places that already have it, but like in America.
well, couldn't that lead
I mean,
to?
right now, a huge issue with prostitution right now is human trafficking.
Yeah,
That really takes place because it's an illegal activity.
yeah,
So they're forced to go seek out women that aren't that because they don't have any that are just not ready for them that are willing.
yeah.
I think if it were decriminalized,
Yeah.
it would allow for loosening up. There wouldn't be as much.
Never mind.
Oh my god.
There wouldn't be as much incentive to go kidnap women to
like
put into the
15-year-old girls,
Yeah.
but then like raise.
I mean
them
that
in the
that seems
industry.
that's a little insensitive to call it incentive, but that's how it is. If there's no
Yeah.
incentive in the market, that applies to that as well.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen.
I think like we should legalize it because for the same reason, like people are already doing it with worst circumstances, like 15-year-old girls raised as sex slaves, and it's not okay.
But this could like lead to
But then
them having a child,
well,
and then didn't you say you were against abortion?
at red light districts, they most likely have contraception. It's a red light district. The whole point of that district
I
is
think.
that,
Well, I think if it were more out in the open, you would be able to that contraception would be more readily available.
yeah,
There would be more pressure on the company to provide that contraception so that the women are protected.
yeah, and they don't give you or you give them STDs.
That as well.
But then that also leads to probably being able to pay a separate fee to like no contraception. No contraception.
Yeah.
Right.
But there is that. I think the big argument against drugs and prostitution and stuff like that, and is that it creates this environment in the United States or in whatever country of just moral bankruptcy. We've put aside. We've just given up on these on society, and
Yeah.
we've just been handed ourselves over into disgusting things of that sort.
Well, I think with the sex work thing, like people need to stop being prunes. I don't want to say that, but like, you know what I mean? Like they need to stop. Like it needs to be like not as taboo to talk about it, because like that way, I just believe if we make it less taboo, then there might be like more like medical research into stuff like STDs. Because if people are like, there's so many people, then they'll know people that have it, and then they'll want to donate more money into it, and then that would speed the research.
I agree with that in a different facet. I don't know that I think it shouldn't be like taboo. I think that these sorts of conversations should be out in the open.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, like the church is like, no, we're too good to touch, the prostitutes. We're too good to touch the drug problems.
Yeah.
We need to stay away from that
The
because
people that you really need to help.
yeah, I mean, Jesus walked around with prostitutes and people who were had demons in them.
I'm sorry, but I'm thinking of like modern day Jesus just walking around the streets of New York with a bunch of like cracked out prostitutes like scratching their arm.
Well, if Jesus were alive today, that'd probably be where he'd be.
Like in the Bronx,
he would be there, and he would be, rather than treating these people like they're sick, that he would provide for them the love that they need, because they have a hole. They're trying to fix it with sex, or they're trying to fix it with drugs, but what they really need is spiritual guidance. They need spiritual surrender. They need to have the Holy Spirit come into their lives, so that, because without the Holy Spirit you can't have a successful life, you can't have a worthwhile life.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads into, we look at drugs and sex work as disgusting and down in the dumps, but the people who the rich people and the high class people, they partake in the same sort of stuff, and that's not looked down upon as much. You have the crack addicts in the streets scratching their arms, or heroin addicts or whatever, and they're frowned upon. But then you have the rich frat boy who does cocaine and lines at the club, and that's boys will be boys and stuff.
Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Me and my homies all do ketamine every night.
And I'm not necessarily saying that's not frowned upon in any way, but it is accepted much more. And I think that we need discriminating based upon class.
Yeah.
Everybody is broken. Everybody is sinful. And honestly, the people who are more down in the dumps are more aware of that fact. They're likely more willing to surrender their lives to a spiritual to Jesus. Whereas we're afraid to touch the high class people because we don't want to offend them, and they control a lot of the economy.
You can't talk to the people above you, but you don't talk to the people below you.
We look down on the people below us, and we just stay away from the people above us, when we need to treat both with love. We need to have discourse with them. We need to have the Holy Spirit fill us, so that we can go and spread the news that they have a hole in their hearts, and that it's not going to be filled by sex or drugs or anything of that sort. It's only going to be filled with Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I yawned.
Oh, that's fine. It's late.
Well,
1:09.
Yeah. Going at 1 a.m. Wait. 2 viewers.
I'm going to be late for lunch.
We have to go to church either way.
Yeah.
That was a joke.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about?
If that's fine, I don't want you to just be wanting to go to sleep right now, but we keep you up doing the podcast.
It's whatever, man.
Okay. Let me think.
If you don't have anything right now, you can save it for another time.
No, favorite colors. Okay, this is
big monkey or no. I don't think I have anything else to talk about.
Do you have anything?
What?
Do you have anything else?
No.
All right.
I don't.
Well, that was a much better stream. Thank you.
What do you mean there was no other stream?
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. To our 2 viewers, you have a good night.
I think you're one of them.
Whatever.
2. It did. Oh wait, it did stop.
Who wouldn't click on that